Part 3. Well, apologies once again. Apologies for the abrupt end of the previous video. And moreover, apologies for rambling on for so long that I now need 3 videos to complete my thoughts. I will really try hard to go quick here and be succinct. No promises, but I'm going to do my best. I believe I was talking about the politics of Flashman right when I got cut off in the previous video. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. I don't understand the politics. Somebody can leave me a comment or a note if you know anything about this or have any theory about a coherent set of politics with the Flashman series, or you can make sense of the change within it, or whatever. If anybody knows more about this than me, leave me a note. I'm going to move on now to the tie-in books with the Flashman series. There's Mr. American, which is not part of the 12 books in the Flashman series, but which is another book written by George MacDonald Fraser, which features Flashman. I read somewhere that Flashman has a cameo part in this book, but actually once I read the book, Flashman really dominates the middle of the book. So it's not accurate to say he's a cameo. It's more accurate to say that he has a big part to play in this book. He's one of the major supporting characters in this book. This book takes place near the end of Flashman's life, right at the start of World War I. The book takes place over the course of 4 years, so Flashman starts off the book at 88 years old, and it finishes when he's 92 years old. And as you would expect, it's the last book in the Flashman chronology. But it's not the last book that was published. This book was published in 1980. So it's right actually in the middle in terms of the publishing dates. There were 6 Flashman books published before this, 6 Flashman books published afterwards. But in terms of the internal chronology of the Flashman story, it's at the end of it. This is a very different book in terms of tone and style than the other books in the Flashman series. It has ambitions to be regarded as much higher literature. Whether or not it succeeds in that is, of course, up to the judgment of the reader. I have a theory that it was meant to emulate War and Peace. I thought I noticed similarities both in terms of the plot structure and in terms of the themes of the book, how it was meant to kind of chronicle the lives of the aristocracy right before a major war broke out. I'm not saying it's on the same level of War and Peace, but I just have this theory that it was meant to emulate War and Peace. The writing style is very immersive. It's quite beautifully written in its own way, in my opinion. George MacDonald Fraser shows that he's got a great talent for creating scenes. And again, this is similar to War and Peace, but you'll have a party that will go on for like 100 pages. Or a card game or something like that, but he'll pull it off. You'll get so immersed in it that you won't even notice how long it's going on in terms of page counts. There are not the usual endnotes at the end, which is a bit of a shame because I would have loved the endnotes, but I understand it completely because the endnotes work to pull you out of the story. And the whole intent of this writing style is to immerse you into the story. But there are a lot of historical characters here. Winston Churchill, King Edward VII is a major character in this book. Now, King Edward VII, also known as Prince Bertie, is an interesting character because he was a very responsible king, but as a prince, he had a very extended adolescence where there's a lot of drinking and womanizing and partying, etc. He's got an interesting dynamic in Flashman, which is fleshed out in some of the later Flashman books, later in terms of publication date, where it looks like they make a comparison to Shakespeare's. If you're familiar with Shakespeare's King Henry IV plays, Edward VII, or Prince Bertie, is Prince Hale, and then Flashman, who is a few years older than him, is compared to Falstaff. And then when Prince Bertie becomes the responsible king, he rejects Flashman just like Prince Hale rejects Falstaff in the Shakespeare plays. If you know your Shakespeare, that analogy will make sense to you. If you don't, look it up, I guess. Now, in Mr. American, that relationship is not as defined as it would be in the later Flashman books. Again, I'm nitpicking the continuity here. Point being, actually, if I had to sum it up, Mr. American is not at all your usual Flashman book, but it's very beautifully written in its own way. Quite a different serious tone than Flashman books, and yet Flashman is a major character in this book. So if you're a Flashman completist, you need to read this one. And you'll want to read this one. It's quite well written. The other book, Black Ajax, is more loosely tied in. Flashman's father is one of the supporting characters in that book. Flashman himself is alluded to, but he never actually shows up. Black Ajax you can skip. Black Ajax, there's a lot more to say about that book. It's got some problematic things, as the kids would say. But I'm just going to leave that one alone for now, and when I work my way up to that in my scripted review series, I'll give Black Ajax more in-depth treatment. Last thing to talk about is the Flashman movie, which is Royal Flash, which came out in 1975. Now, Royal Flash is based off the second book in the Flashman series. The book that the fans don't like as much because it's not based on real history, it's based on a fictional kingdom. There's not a lot of information on this on the internet. I found there's a little bit of information on Wikipedia, a little bit more information on the AV Club. AV Club has an interview with Malcolm McDowell, who is part of the Random Roles series, where they talk about all the roles he did, and they talk a little bit about this movie. But for a couple of reasons, they decided not to film the first movie. The biggest reason appears to be the expense of filming all these battles in Afghanistan. They weren't going to film it in Afghanistan anyways. They were going to film it in Spain, but all the set pieces and all the battles. And the second reason apparently, according to the Malcolm McDowell interview, is the problematic elements of the book. I'm not sure if he's referring to the rape or to the politics, or maybe both of them. But for whatever reason, or a combination of both of them, they skipped the first one and went right to the second one, which is part of the reason, again, according to Malcolm McDowell in the interview he gave with the AV Club, part of the reason that the film just did not do well at all. Even though Flashman at the time was a very popular book series in Britain, people were like, well, why are you starting with the second book? Well, why not the first book? And a lot of the fans just stayed home. My British friend, who's huge into Flashman, the one I knew in Cambodia, absolutely hated this film and couldn't actually watch it. He said he felt like if he was going to watch the film, it would ruin Flashman for him. His biggest objection seems to be he didn't like Malcolm McDowell's character because Malcolm McDowell is blonde and Flashman is always portrayed as having brown hair in the book. This is something you're going to have to forgive if you watch the movie. I actually found a copy of it, and I thought it was okay. I was willing to forgive the fact that Malcolm McDowell was blonde. I thought he otherwise did a very good job of capturing the essence of Flashman. Somebody who's so smug, and he plays the moralist so well. In fact, the opening scene of this movie is brilliant. He's giving this speech, this really moralizing speech to a group of school children. He's like, play up and play the game. Always tell your truth. Listen to what your elders tell you. Wash your hands twice a day. And acting like this super moral character, and then at the very next scene, of course, shows him gambling and drinking, and just the hypocrisy of Flashman, I think they captured so well in this movie. I think Malcolm McDowell did a perfect job of it. It was very faithful to the book as well, even though this is unfortunately the one book in the Flashman series that's not very rooted in real history. It does march through the plot points of the book pretty much as they were written. But have you ever watched a movie based on a book where you thought it was very faithful, but you had a feeling that they were just trudging through the plot points and that the movie wasn't really taking on a life of its own? That was kind of my impression of the Flashman movie. Anyways, it was not a big hit. You can find it, maybe, I don't know. I found a copy in a DVD store in Cambodia. You can find a copy online somewhere, I'm sure. It's a bit obscure, but you can find it. If you're a huge Flashman fan, I thought the movie had its moments, but it wasn't great. Nothing really special about it, and it didn't do very well. And will they ever make another movie? Who knows? Maybe someday. Okay, so there is a ton more to talk about, but I will talk about more of these books more fully when I review them each separately as I go through my scripted review series. For now, I think you'll agree I've rambled on for more than long enough, so I'm going to end the video here.